41 participants logged in, so that's wonderful. I'm Dr. Pat Whitlow. I am the director of the Office of Nationally Competitive Awards. So I have seen a few familiar names on the screen so far. I am in the Funkhauser building, and I put this lovely blue screen behind me so that you won't have to look at the concrete block walls of my office. But I am really delighted to be able to speak to you tonight about undergraduate research, which is not my primary area. I work with students a lot about research, but of course, working in nationally competitive awards, I'm trying to get you to think about different research opportunities and other types of awards. And so undergraduate research can be a big part of that. So what I'm going to do is give you sort of the best background I can, starting fairly simply, because I don't know how many of you, I'm assuming actually that this audience is maybe not doing research, and so you're just beginning. But some of you may be doing some research and you have some different questions, so that will be fine too. And also we have a chat box at the bottom. You can put it in the chat box, but I'm also very comfortable if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question. So that is not, will not bother me. I see that there is something in the chat box trying to ask everyone to fill out a survey. So just want to make everyone aware of that. I am going to share my screen and share just a couple of PowerPoint slides. And I'm going to talk about some things, and then I'm going to try to share actually share the UK webpage and make sure I can do that. But first I will just talk a little bit about some basics of research. UK is a Research One institution. For those of you who might not be aware, or you may have heard that term, you don't know what it means. It's the top tier of research institution in the United States. And it's generally judged by the amount of research dollars is one of the ways that they measure that. So the amount of money that faculty are bringing in from NIH, National Institutes of Health, or NSF, National Science Foundation, or Department of Education, a variety of government and nonprofit sources, endowments to do research. It can also have to do with the number of faculty in Academy of Sciences. I mean, this can be measured in several different ways, but it is top tier. And so that's wonderful for you. For those of you who are really interested in getting engaged in research, is obviously research is performed at a very high level here. And that picture, that's a former Chelgren Fellow, but they were at the showcase. And we'll talk about that. There used to be a research showcase in the spring, and there still will be, but it will be virtual this year as it was last year. But it used to be that we would all gather in the armory or once in the library, so a large location on campus so that students could show their posters in person. What is undergraduate research? I think this is something that people aren't sure, and so scholarly inquiry or investigation. And that, looking at this particular picture, it looks like, oh, it must be labs, right? I often will have students say to me, well, I can't do undergraduate research because I'm a studio art major or something. Research and scholarly inquiry takes place in every discipline in the academy. I mean, there is no department on this campus that would say they don't do research. They might call it something different. It might be a different kind of product. So once when I was working with a student who's a theater major, her research product was a lighting plan for a theater show that was being done, right? Because that's the kind of scholarly inquiry they do in that field. It might be in music, it might be performing arts. So research or creative projects, it can be a variety of things, but it does span all disciplines. They certainly do research in history and in the social sciences. So while we often use like the symbol of lab research to represent research, that's a little bit misleading. But in this particular PowerPoint, which I borrowed from undergraduate research, they have a lot of pictures about labs because it's just easier to represent it that way. But why for you to get involved? There are a couple of things. I think I might start at the bottom and talk about earning academic credit. You can, usually people do a 395. So in your academic department, let's say it's sociology, it would be Social 395. That's a research credit, and it can be anywhere from 1 to 6 credits. And you'll be doing research in a lab. And so when people are doing 3 credits, it's typically 7 to 10 hours of research a week with your faculty mentor or in the research setting. It will help your career trajectory. It depends on what it is. I mean, let's say you do want to go to medical school. Lots of students in that field are doing research with public health or the College of Medicine or pharmacy, somewhere related in that direction. But maybe you want to teach history or go on in the academy and get a PhD in history. You will also want to do undergraduate research, because when you go for a PhD in any field, it is primarily research-based, right? And so you're going to want to learn some skills at the undergraduate level. You will learn transferable skills. I mean, research, there is a certain amount of administrative research involved with research. Writing a grant can be one of the skills you learn from research. Preparing an article for scholarly publication, giving a presentation at a research showcase, learning how to present your data in a way that a person who's not in your field could understand what your research is doing. And that's very important for gaining funding. So there are a lot of transferable skills in doing undergraduate research. And then it also connects you to people on the campus. It's a wonderful way to get to know a faculty member better. You would spend more time with them that you might in a class that you took with them. You also often have people involved in your project, students who are working in psychology in the labs doing experiments. It's often you're in a group project, and so you're figuring out how together we're going to get this completed. So it's wonderful for recommendations and connecting you to other people with your interests. And so that's why you might want to consider it if you haven't thus far. I would, when they talk about planning and preparing, allow a semester for planning and preparation. That's partly, I know that seems a very long time, but that's partly where we are as well in the year. It might be hard, for example, for you to hop into some kind of research situation. What is today, April 6th? And the semester is ending a month or in 5 weeks. And so this is probably not a great time to actually begin an undergraduate research project, although it's not impossible. It could be that you're going to stay in Lexington in the summer and you want to talk to a faculty member about starting now and working all through the summer. So that might be great timing for you. But you may be thinking about doing something when you come back in the fall. And that it can also be great to start reaching out now and thinking about who you'd like to do research with or the kind of work that you'd like to do, and then giving yourself time enough, because it may be that the first faculty member you reach out to doesn't have room on their research project to take another undergraduate student. It may be that they don't have funding or time. There can be lots of reasons why you might have to go to several faculty members. I will also mention, in addition to getting credit for research, there are students who are being paid for doing their research on campus. And so it can become your paid job. That depends on how well the faculty member is funded and if they have a grant that allows them to pay undergraduate students. So sometimes you're doing it volunteer, right? You're just doing it for the experience, and that is okay, and that is very important. Oftentimes students begin that way and learn a set of skills, and then they may move into credit, and then they may move into a paid position. But you have to realize that while you are giving work to the research setting and you're learning, it is oftentimes you don't know enough. It takes a while before you can really contribute because you're learning and you need to read some background information. And so being able to pay you may not be something the faculty can do initially. For time commitment, you should probably, this is what they suggest, 7 to 10 hours a week, and that's necessary for if you're going to get credit, and a minimum of 2 semesters. And 2 semesters is good because it gives you time to see a project kind of go through. You can see changes, you can possibly contribute enough that you might be on a publication. I work with the Chelker Fellows program as well, and we only require 1 semester of research for them, but we're looking at changing that to a year because we think that would be much better for the students. And some of them go on and do research and get that year, and some don't. So we're looking at that. It may be something that you do, you start as a sophomore and do it till you graduate, right? We have students who started in high school and come to UK and they're ready to start right away and they do it, so it may be that you really love research and it's really important in your field and you will always be engaged. It may be for others of you, it's a year-long commitment. It may not be the entire length of the time. Let's say you might say, I can't commit 10 hours a week to some kind of research for, 3 or 4 or 6 semesters, but it will also ebb and flow. It may be that you have a particularly tough semester and you have a lot of credits and you talk to your research mentor and you're doing 4 hours a week in the lab, right? And then coming back in the summer and doing 30. So that kind of thing can really vary. It's something that you work out with your mentor. They put on here sophomore year because that's often when people begin. They have to spend their first year getting situated and meeting people in their department and determining what they want to do. But that is not a cardinal rule. You can begin undergraduate research as a senior if you did not get a chance to do any prior. You can start as a first-year student. So I think that's just a suggestion, once again, based on it just sometimes seems to be natural timing, but it is not a requirement by any means. Now, in terms of how to get started, they have mentioned register with the Office of Undergraduate Research. I do want to make you all aware that the Office of Undergraduate Research is currently undergoing some revisions and it's changing. There are going to be different staff. They're going to hire a part-time faculty director. And so I don't actually know that they want you to register with the Office of Undergraduate Research right now. And if they do, basically what that's doing is putting you on a listserv for them. They don't really have the staff right now to do a lot of individual advising. Each college is now going to have its own undergraduate research advisor. So you'll be able to look in your college and see who that person is. And they will also be a resource for you. And then there is a guide to getting started on the undergraduate research website. And I was going to bring that up and look at you with those steps. But first, let me see. A question from Hannah. What's the best way to go about asking a new research mentor if they are able to pay you? I would just ask. I mean, I don't, you can talk about what are the opportunities in this position. Is it a paid role? Some of them start out being paid and some of them move into that. So I think that's fine when you're speaking to that faculty member and when you're investigating, because it's not just you're trying to persuade them that you're going to be good in their research setting and you want them to take you on as a mentee, but at the same time, you want to make sure they're a good mentor for you, that they have time, right? That they're interested in some of the things that you might be interested in. Some faculty have really large labs on campus in the College of Medicine, so you would primarily be working with a graduate student or a postdoc. And that can be wonderful, but if you're not as interested in that, then you might want to look at some other situations. But I think it's fine to just in that conversation to indicate, is this research position in your lab, department, archive, wherever it is this a paid position, or does it have the potential to turn into a paid position? This faculty will not be shocked by being asked that question. Now, the answer you get may not be what you wanted, which is a yes, I assume, but they will be fine with you asking. It's not, something that would be inappropriate. So yes, this student's getting started. I was going to bring up this website. So I'll see if I share screen and bring that up again. Where did I put that? Maybe I can click on this. Will this allow me? This probably won't share the screen though, will it? Can you guys see this? Jessica, can you guys see this, or just you can just see me?
I cannot right now.
All right, let me see if I can pull it up on the share screen. I think this is what I pulled up. Now, does this work better?
Yes, we can see now.
Okay. So this is from the Office of Undergraduate Research, and they are still going to house certain functions. They will still run the showcase in the spring, and there's a 5-minute research presentation competition, and they will still do that. But the individual research assignments, my understanding, will be moved more to the colleges. And there is money that was used to host summer researchers before to allow students to stay on campus where a research assignment couldn't be paid. And that funding is being moved out to the colleges. So that's where these undergraduate research advisors in the colleges will be better able to give you advice on that. So I'm going to start with step 2 and talk about it a little bit, and also feel free to either ask questions in the chat box or speak up. Identify your interests. But I also be broad about that, right? People, you may want to do research. You do not have to do research in your own major. I think sometimes people get a little confused about that. So if you were a poli-sci major, you do not have to do research with one of the poli-sci faculty. Maybe you want to do it with someone doing at the UK Center for Poverty Research, and that's in the College of Business. Maybe you want to do some kind of social science project that ties in sort of international studies and poli-sci, right? And so you know, you're with a different faculty member. So it is a good idea to have some idea of things you want to do, but to be open to other ideas. So if you are particularly interested in a medical topic and you want to look at the College of Medicine, you know, then you are pretty much looking at lab research. Although there is also behavioral health where you may be doing other kinds of research or more applied research, surveys and things with patients. And then there's also the College of Public Health. So thinking about areas or topics you might be interested in just as a starting point to look. And then, as we discussed, thinking about the time. I think that they, you know, again, they make this 7 to 10 hours, 2 semesters. That's a suggestion. That's not in any way a requirement, right? We don't have a specific guideline about how much undergraduate research you can do or not. And I have had students over the years who were very, very interested in undergraduate research, really wanted to go and get a PhD in physics or math or whatever their field was. And so did a lot of research. That became their primary academic activity on campus outside of their classes. So, but you do want to make sure that you have time. And so it is not helpful if you are a student who has, you know, 17 activities and you're taking 20 hours and you're already really, really pressed. What you don't want to do is get a faculty member to commit to you on a research project and then you don't show up. Or you don't attend meetings, or you can't get it done, right? So you want to make sure that you have time, because this is going to, if this is going to be an important relationship, then you want to be productive for that individual. Then looking at faculty web pages, I will show you, there's also a place where you can look for some projects that are going on now. But so several of these again are, well, no, actually, they're not all. I mean, the spinal cord and brain injury research might be more lab, but the Center for Applied Energy Research, it's labs, but it may be working on different things. There's somebody in engineering that's connected to that working on like a rare earth minerals recovery site down in Western Kentucky. There are several engineering students doing co-ops there. Center on Drug and Alcohol Research is oftentimes, it can be specifically health-based, the effect of alcohol in your body. Sometimes it's more public health-based in terms of the circumstances that might lead somebody to overuse or be addicted. Poverty research, right, might be looking at SNAP program or what COVID has done to single mothers, or, you know, so there might be a variety of research in all kinds of, and it doesn't have to be through one of these centers, it can be directly with a faculty member. You might want to start with the people who are teaching you at the moment. And maybe you're the professor you feel closest to or most easily able to talk to is in a field that you're not really sure you want to do research there, but you could at least talk to them about options. They might be just a good place to start to sort of practice your pitch or to think about some things that you might want to do. We have had sometimes students involved in cross-disciplinary work. So they're doing a project maybe between fine arts and social science or something, and that's fine. And sometimes they have more than one faculty member they're working with. I think I said, keep a broad perspective. Talk to other students about the research they're doing and their faculty mentor. We often have, like in the children program, cellos will hand down their research place to the next children. You know, maybe it's in a lab and they'll say to the faculty member, I have this student who's coming on, and can they take my place? And so they would obviously meet with the faculty member, or you know, they're working in the library, can I take that spot? Because they do a lot of research in the library. So don't be shy about saying you want to do undergraduate research, and talk to faculty, talk to students, mention it to your academic advisor, because you never know who might know someone and they'll say this would be a good contact. It is important to listen to students' opinions of good, you know, good research mentor and whether or not you like them. It is important to have a good relationship. It is not important that you be friends, right? Because not all the faculty will have time for that, or they may not have the personality, or so it's important, you know, that they include you and that they have time for you. But they may be very much, you know, focused on the facts, just the facts, you know, focused on the research. Okay, so it may not be a highly social relationship, and that's fine. That may happen for you more at the graduate level. And then contact the faculty member. Sometimes maybe it's somebody in your academic department, engineering or something, and you could go to their office hours and introduce yourself and talk to them. But a lot of times you're going to send them an email, and it's going to be very short. You're going to tell them a little bit about yourself. And when I say that, you know, they don't need to know where you're from, or, you know, but the fact that you are, you know, an ag biotech major, and you're finishing your first year and you're looking into research and you're particularly interested in, you know, aphids and, you know, or whatever it is they're doing research on, there's a faculty member that works with flies. There are faculty members that works with those. I can't remember the type of lizard, but we have a whole colony here. You know, there are faculty that work with birds and bears and all kinds of animals. There are faculty that work with lots of plants. There are faculty that do research on people. There are lots of different types of research. So do enough looking at their website that you have some idea what their research is and that you would be interested in it. And most faculty will give you some sense of what their research area is. Now, not all faculty are great about keeping their website up to date. So you may look on there and you may see that they're doing a project on, you know, I don't know, some kind of book project, and you're really interested in that, and you reach out to them and they're like, oh no, I've moved on to music or something. So sometimes they have kind of changed their research interests, but oftentimes it will be, at least the area will stay the same. And you can say, I saw, you know, on your website that you're doing this project, or I read your most recent article and I'm really interested in that. And then send out the email, and understand that faculty are busy. And obviously the pandemic year has created special issues around research and doing research in person, but those are starting to change, and we're getting back to more of the regular system where you can be in person meetings, and although we're still doing a lot of Zoom. But go ahead and send the email and give them time. I know that a lot of us are on our phones all the time, and we, you know, want somebody to respond within a couple of hours, but they may not do that. They may not even respond by the next day. If they haven't responded in a week, you know, you might reach out again and see, or you might see some of your other contacts, how those go. But I would not expect immediate response, because they may need to think about it. They may be in the middle of a project. They may be, I had a faculty that I was struggling to get in touch with earlier in the year, and I really needed them for something. And it turns out they were writing a grant and they were pretty frantic. And so they were just sort of off any kind of communications for a couple of days. So that could be happening and you just don't realize. There is a link here. You can go to some sample emails that would give you, if you're nervous about that. So here, these are things, I guess, hopefully, to make you feel more comfortable. Like I said, if you want to do an in-person, go to office hours. But again, you want to probably make your stay relatively brief because they may have other students coming in, and so be prepared with what you want to say and what you want to ask. Faculty are fine with you asking. You shouldn't be shy, even if they can't take you, right? They'll tell you that, but they might have someone that they will recommend. So don't hesitate to reach out. Again, talking about issues of address, it is important. They may later tell you to call them something else. They may ask you to call them by the first name, but in the beginning, you should always use doctor or professor. And then I think you can read these things. I mean, this is just good professional practice, right? To make sure that you've checked your email and that you're not sending it as if you would have sent a text. I think it is a good idea to use your UK email because that lets them know that you're, that you're legitimate and they understand you're an undergraduate student. And so it doesn't mean that you couldn't switch to another email at another time. But and then there is some advice here for a meeting with a potential faculty mentor. And so I would let you go back and look at this before you go, to meet with them, or if you're on Zoom, make sure you have a neutral background, or that you're not wearing your pajamas. We've gotten used to dressing down during this pandemic period, I know. And then be careful, understand their expectations. It is important, as Hannah was asking earlier, it's okay to ask about, is it a paid position or could it become that? Can I do this research for credit? How long will it be before I'm trained and can actually do some of the research? Because you may have to do research ethics training, depending on if you're going to work with human or animal subjects. You may have to do safety training, likely will. There are lots of different kinds of research training. You may have to there's a microscope training that people go through, often researching in the College of Medicine. So it may take some time. The faculty member may want you to read some of the background papers that the lab has been producing. So it's important to ask that, what kind of preparation would be helpful for you. To be honest about your schedule. They may have only specific times, some of our research buildings are secured buildings and you might not be able to get in unless, until they can give you access or a pass, or so you may only be able to work during a normal work week, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Could you manage that? At other times, students can do research at any time. I have, students who are doing computer science or who are analyzing data from the observatory or something. They may be working on it in the middle of the night, right? Because they've got the data set on their own laptop. So this is just a good idea to work, but you shouldn't be afraid to ask a faculty member questions. I mean, they will be happy if you are prepared and have some questions for them. And then, in terms of your research, ultimately the goal is you hope to be able to present it at some point, to be able to do a research poster, to be able to share your work with other students and faculty. Maybe you'll get a publication credit at some point. That's happening more and more with undergraduates. So there are a lot of things that you may get out of it. As I said, in terms of transferable skills, this may be a person who writes a letter for your applying to graduate school or a job or a summer research experience. There can be lots of things that this can be very, very useful for. And I will go back, let's see. Okay, so they also have a list of research opportunities now on this website. And so some of these, I don't know how quickly they come on and off. So it's possible that you would reach out to somebody and they would actually have filled that, and they hadn't mentioned it to Jessie yet. So so look at these, and if you think you're interested, but you can reach out to faculty separately as well. But we'll just pick one. Here's in psychology, and there's the name of the faculty member, and they have 3 opportunities and this is what they're looking for. So you would earn this 395 credit or you would work as a volunteer. So they're telling you up front, they don't have funding. That doesn't mean it wouldn't ever, but right now they don't. They are hiring their research assistants a semester in advance. So you'd want to reach out this semester. But they let you come in at any experience level, which is great. They don't say you have to be a psychology major. And in most cases, people don't. You might be more interested in it if you are, because you might be interested in those kinds of psychological instruments. But it may be that you're in sociology and you want to try that, and that would be great as well. So they're going to give you a little bit of information, and then they may have another listing. I don't know. So they may, they have more information about the Hammer Lab. And if I were you, before I reached out to Professor Hammer, I would read all of this, maybe look at the video, depending on how long it is, but I would learn about the lab. Because what you don't want is to then ask a question and it's, covered in point 3 or whatever, and you could have read that yourself. So I would definitely do your own research. I think the faculty will respect that more, and then you'll be able to have a more productive meeting. There are some summer research internships. Here's a paid one in entomology with Dr. Tietz, and it's possible that, I don't know if you have to have, you can participate in field work, learn skills. It doesn't say you have to have a particular skill set. So it's only for one student too, but you might, if you are interested in a paid position and you are interested in entomology and working with bugs and, you're willing to work outside in the heat, that might be a great opportunity for you. So definitely look, oh, I'm sorry, I left that page. Definitely take a look at these 2, because it might, even if you scan them and you don't see something that you think is the right for you, it might give you an idea of the way they talk about these opportunities. So before I just keep scanning, the website for you, I will stop the share now and see if we have more questions. Oh, okay. I don't have any more in the chat box now, but would you like to unmute yourself and ask any questions? Does anybody have one? I'm pretty friendly, pretty easy if you have one. There is something in the chat box. How would you recommend departing from your lab research mentor and joining a new lab? Oh, okay, good question. And Hannah, you're asking some of the harder questions. Now that can be, most of you will not come on to that for a while, right? You would have been involved in research. It may depend on why you're leaving. If you just want to gain a different experience, in most cases, you're just going to say. A lot of scientists are not, they're not that sentimental about people coming and going from their research labs because, one, it happens all the time. Students come and go. So you will not be the first one who left a project and went on to a different project or wanted to try something else. So it is important that you've been doing your work, right, before you go to them and say, oh, I'm leaving, right? That you have whatever it is that is your part, that it's up to date. You want to leave in a way that you're leaving it well set up for the next person that would come into that. So you don't want to have a lot of tasks that you were responsible to do and you just haven't been getting to that. I would also leave in the way that it's timely for the lab. Now, sometimes that's not possible, and I understand, because you may get an offer and you need to take that offer and go in the middle of a semester. I understand that. That might not be most desirable for the place where you're at, and I'm going to say labs because Hannah mentioned labs. So that's something to have a conversation to see. You don't want to inadvertently cause the lab, you don't want to set them back. If you're an important part of a project, you want to at least help them get to a stopping point and before you leave. If you can forecast it a little bit, if you know already that you have a position to start next fall in another lab, then go ahead and talk with the faculty member now. Do not wait until the day before you're going to check out for finals, right? Go ahead and say to them now, I'm going to be here another 5 weeks. What are the tasks you'd like me to get done? What can I wrap up for you while I'm here, right? So leave on the term, just because you're leaving a lab doesn't mean that you don't want a good relationship with that faculty mentor or postdoc or even graduate student. It doesn't mean that you won't want a letter from them. It doesn't mean you wouldn't want to come back at some point ever. Maybe they get a big, huge grant, So I would, give them as much notice as you can. Make sure that your work is really in a good state to leave to someone else. And but then I would be honest. And if they ask you why you're leaving, I think you can say, hopefully it's not it's not a really difficult or sensitive reason. I understand that there are certain circumstances that might be really hard, in which case I would advise the student we'll talk directly about that, and I would give you some advice. But if it's the normal thing where you're leaving a lab because you have a different opportunity, or you have a paid opportunity, or you think, you really are interested in that particular, then just say that. I mean, faculty have done that themselves, and so I think they'll find about that. So just using your good, the way you want to be treated, right? And treating the faculty member in that way. So hopefully that helps. I understand that that's their positions of power, right? In the faculty member's lab, and they have money. And so it probably feels awkward. They will probably find it less awkward than you. And they probably, may not be that surprised, because people do leave labs all the time. It just wasn't the right fit, or they not particularly interested in that project, or and so those things happen. I thought I heard a sound, but I didn't see another message come in. Other questions? I would encourage you strongly to think about undergraduate research, even if you don't feel like you have time right now in your schedule, right? But at some point to think about it, because it might give you some sense of, you might be saying to yourself, oh, I want to go on and do graduate school in economics or whatever. But if you've never done any undergraduate research, if you've never done any independent research, you may not know what graduate school will be like, and it may not be something that you would enjoy. Sometimes people are really interested in, let's say an astronomy project, because they want to just look through the telescope and, think that would be cool. And the reality is it's highly technical now, right? I mean, you process a lot of data. I mean, enormous data sets, right? So you have to have very good data management skills and some computer science skills, and, and you may not have realized that, and it may not be as interesting to you. So getting some undergraduate research can sometimes help you say, yes, this is absolutely the field I've chosen, and I'm pleased with it, and I want to go forward. And sometimes you're like, that is not what I thought it was going to be. And so I want to go and maybe look at some other career paths in my area of study. Any other questions? Jessica, was there anything else you wanted me to go over? There is more information on the undergraduate research page. And so I just don't want to read it all to you. I think you can go and look at that and get some of that information yourself. And so, and what I would be happy to do is serve as your, answer any questions to you. I'll put my email here in the chat box so that you guys would have it. I would be delighted to answer a question and, talk to you further after you've done some research. If you had a lab you were interested in, or a topic, and you wanted to, talk about it further. I often work with students who are applying for summer research grants. And so I can help read for you, or applying for the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program when you get further on in your career, should that be something that you're interested in. So research and competitive awards actually have a lot of overlap. So I'm delighted to be able to speak to you guys tonight, and would be happy to have a further conversation if that would be useful. So Jessica, anything else that you wanted me to cover, or should I turn it over to you?
I think that was really perfect. Unless anybody has any further questions? I think that was very informative.
I will stop recording, but we will give this to Jessica, and I don't know how you share it, or we can put it on my website or something, but we can make it so that you can see it again if you like to, or if you have a friend who wasn't able to come, you can have them look at it. Or if you just want to make an appointment and talk with me directly, I'm happy to do that as well. So, but I will stop recording now.